You have been wondering why. No matter how far you try to walk away, something always pulls you back toward that one person. You see their name at random moments. Their song plays unexpectedly. Their face flashes in your mind when you try to pray about something else. This is not coincidence, it is orchestration. Heaven is trying to get your attention. God keeps choosing that person for you, not because he wants to torment you with longing, but because there is purpose that still breathes between your spirits. Listen, this is not ordinary attraction. You have felt many things before, but this one carries a weight in your chest that feels like eternity whispering. It is the kind of connection that keeps resurfacing even after you've buried it beneath busyness, silence, or pride. You have told yourself, "It's over. I'm done." Yet somehow, heaven presses rewind on your heart. Each time you try to move on, divine signs reappear like gentle knocks on the door of your destiny. There are moments when you sit in stillness and their name comes to mind with no trigger, as if the Spirit himself breathed it into your thoughts. That's not obsession, it's alignment. God is doing something in the unseen. You must understand when something is chosen by God. It cannot be cancelled by human delay or emotion. Even when it feels stuck, heaven is weaving threads of destiny that human hands cannot untie. Maybe you've prayed, "God, why do you keep bringing them back into my spirit if it's not meant to be?" And heaven answers softly, "Because I am not finished yet." You see, when God keeps choosing a person for you, it's not about ownership or control, it's about calling. There is something in them that mirrors a part of your assignment. It's not about who makes you comfortable, it's about who awakens your purpose. But here is the test: you are being trained to trust God's timing, not your timeline. Divine connections often come with divine delays. You are learning to surrender your need to understand every detail, and to trust that if it's truly from Him, it will stand even after seasons of silence. When heaven chooses, no storm can undo it. You might be saying, "But what if they don't feel the same way anymore?" Remember this: God is not limited by human emotion. He moves hearts, shifts seasons, and resurrects what you thought was finished. What looks impossible in your eyes is a simple matter in His. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 10, verse 9, "Therefore what God has joined together, let no one separate." This isn't just about marriage, it's about divine union in purpose, timing, and calling. It means what God binds in heaven will not unravel on earth unless you loosen it through doubt or disobedience. You are part of something heaven sanctioned. And even when your emotions falter, divine purpose remains steadfast. This is why the same person keeps being placed in your path, not as a distraction, but as a confirmation. Heaven has been echoing the same message in different ways because your heart is finally still enough to listen. Do not let discouragement convince you to walk away from what heaven keeps circling back to. Every delay, every season of silence, every misunderstanding is part of the preparation. The foundation must be strengthened before the structure is restored. God will never rush what He intends to last forever. You are learning endurance not because God wants you to suffer, but because love that survives refining becomes unbreakable. You are being transformed into someone who can love with patience, understanding, and spiritual maturity. You are becoming the version of yourself that the promise requires. So, instead of asking, "Why me?" start asking, "What are you teaching me?" Lord, because every divine connection comes with lessons that prepare you for greater purpose. God doesn't recycle people into your life for nostalgia. He resurrects what still carries destiny. There is divine choreography in motion. When the time comes, alignment will be effortless. You won't have to chase or convince. You'll simply meet at the intersection of obedience and divine timing. Until then, guard your faith, not your fears. Keep your heart pure, your spirit open, and your hope anchored in God's promise. If you are hearing this message right now, heaven has paused your scrolling for a reason. You are not meant to give up now. You are closer to breakthrough than you realize. Let this be your sign. God is still writing the story. So pause, breathe, whisper, I trust you, God. And when you're ready, like, share, and subscribe so this message can reach another chosen one who's on the verge of letting go. Then, in the comments, type 777 as a prophetic declaration that you will not give up on what heaven has appointed for you. You begin to notice patterns, subtle, recurring echoes of something beyond logic. The same time on the clock, the same place you almost meet, the same song that finds you when your thoughts drift toward that person. It's as if heaven is weaving threads through time, leaving traces that only your spirit can read. You think it's random, but deep down, you know it's not. It's divine repetition, a language spoken not in words but in moments. God has a way of confirming what He has already ordained, not by loud announcements, but by quiet consistency. When something is meant for you, the signs don't fade, they multiply. You start to realize that these repetitions are not torment, they are reminders. Each one says, don't give up. I'm still working. There are times when you try to dismiss it, telling yourself that you're overthinking, that it's all in your imagination. But then, the same symbol appears again, unexpected, undeniable. You look up at the sky, and it feels like the universe itself is conspiring to remind you of something sacred. That's the mark of a divine connection. God repeats what He refuses to let you forget. Every sign you see is an echo of His promise. He knows how easily you get discouraged, how often you question if you've heard Him correctly. So, He sends confirmations in patterns to anchor your wavering faith. These divine patterns are not punishment, they're preparation. God is building trust in you, trust that sees beyond the visible, faith that survives the silence. You've prayed for clarity, and heaven has answered not with explanation, but with evidence. Patterns are heaven's fingerprints. They say, I am still here. Keep watching, keep trusting. God doesn't waste repetition, He uses it to train your discernment. When you start to recognize His patterns, you begin to understand His rhythm. Sometimes, the repetition is not just about them, it's about you. God keeps showing you the same situation because He's inviting you to respond differently this time. It's not about chasing after signs, but learning how to recognize His voice through them. Every repeated event is a lesson disguised as coincidence. You are learning spiritual sensitivity, how to see with faith, not just with your eyes. There's a divine patience in how God teaches you. He doesn't rush revelation. He lets it unfold in patterns until you finally see. And when you do, everything makes sense. The timing, the silence, the interruptions, even the heartbreaks. They weren't punishments, they were divine choreography. You start to notice that even in the moments you tried to run from the connection, God kept leading you back to it. Not because you're trapped, but because He's teaching you endurance. The lesson is not about obsession, it's about faithfulness. You are being trained to stay grounded in faith, even when you don't see progress. The Word of God declares in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verse 1, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." Those words are a reminder that what feels delayed is not denied, it's simply reserved for its appointed time. God repeats what is meant to last. If He keeps bringing someone or something back to your heart, it's because the appointed season has not yet come to completion. You are standing between the promise and its fulfillment. And heaven is using repetition to strengthen your resolve. You may not understand it now, but divine patterns are heaven's handwriting across your timeline. They are messages that bypass your logic and reach your spirit. When you begin to trust them, peace follows. You stop striving to make things happen, and you start resting in the rhythm of God's confirmation. Let the repetition remind you, not frustrate you. Let it build your confidence in His plan. When God keeps repeating something, it's not because He's forgotten, it's because He wants you to remember. Remember who you are. Remember who He is. And remember that nothing ordained by heaven can be erased by time or distance. You are learning that faith is not proven in fireworks, but in quiet repetition. God whispers through patterns so that only those tuned to His frequency will hear. What you call coincidence is often confirmation. The repetition isn't to confuse you, it's to remind you, stay steadfast. Purpose is unfolding. Every repeated encounter carries divine weight. When God echoes something, it's because it's still relevant to your destiny. These moments are sacred invitations to lean deeper into trust, to recognize heaven's rhythm. You are not lost in circles, you are orbiting divine timing, drawing closer with every repetition. Let patience shape your understanding. The same signs appearing again are heaven's way of saying, hold your ground. I am not finished. You are walking within divine geometry. What loops today will align tomorrow. The pattern is not punishment, it's precision, guiding you through unseen corridors of destiny. So, breathe again and stay aware. The signs will continue until the purpose is fulfilled. Let every repetition remind you of God's unshakable consistency. You are part of something eternal. What He repeats, He intends to complete, and what He intends to complete, He will perfect in His time. There are moments when distance becomes your teacher. You feel their absence like an echo that refuses to fade. Yet somehow you sense that God is still in the silence. You keep asking why the connection had to drift, why the messages slowed, why heaven allowed this gap to grow. But distance is not the death of divine promise, it's the classroom of faith. God often separates what He intends to strengthen. When He hides a person from your reach, it's not rejection, it's refinement. The pause between you is not punishment, it's purpose. Heaven is giving both of you space to grow into the vessels that can carry what's coming. Love that is destined by God must first be purified by waiting. You've mistaken stillness for abandonment, but heaven is speaking louder in the silence than in the noise. When God goes quiet, He's not ignoring you, He's preparing you. You are learning how to love without clinging, how to trust without constant reassurance, how to believe even when everything around you says it's over. This is where faith becomes real. Distance doesn't destroy what is divine, It reveals what is human. The human side wants control, closure, understanding, but the divine side whispers, "Be still." God is asking you to step back so He can step in. He doesn't need your manipulation. He needs your surrender. Every time you choose faith over fear, heaven moves closer to alignment. We find in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 4, "But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing." Those words are not just about endurance, they are about transformation. You are being shaped by waiting, molded by silence, refined by distance. Every unanswered prayer, every moment you feel forgotten, is secretly preparing you to become the promise you've been praying for. You see, when God separates two people who carry divine purpose, He is not ending the story, He is rewriting it with more depth. The separation becomes sacred soil, where humility grows, where pride dies, and where clarity blooms. The silence between you is the space where heaven breathes alignment. Perhaps you've been tempted to chase after them, to fix what feels broken. But this time, God is saying, stand still. If it is truly divine, it does not need forcing, it will find its way back in divine order. The pause is not loss, it's divine editing. God removes what cannot remain, so that only what's eternal will stand. In this season, you are learning to let God love through you. Not just for you. Your prayers for them are still heard. Heaven has not closed its ears to your tears. But before God brings you back together, He must first bring you back to yourself, to your peace, your purpose, your posture of faith. The distance will one day make sense. What feels like separation now will soon look like setup. You will look back and realize that it had to be this way for both of you to see clearly, to choose freely, and to love purely. Now, type in the comments, faith over feelings. Let those 3 words anchor your spirit. When you write them, you're declaring that even though your emotions scream uncertainty, your faith chooses surrender. You're saying to heaven, I trust your distance as much as I trust your presence. This is how you rise above the silence, by believing that even in separation, God is still connecting every thread of destiny. When you write faith over feelings, you're reminding your soul that emotions shift, but God's purpose does not. Feelings are temporary winds, but faith is the anchor. Choosing faith means deciding that divine timing matters more than human impatience, that unseen promises carry greater truth than visible silence. Faith over feelings is not denial, it's discipline. It's the act of saying, even when I feel forgotten, I am still chosen. It's standing tall when your heart wavers, trusting that heaven's delay is not heaven's denial. Faith speaks peace where emotion shouts panic, and that's where divine strength grows. Every time you choose faith over feelings, heaven notices. The spiritual realm moves at the command of faith, not emotion. Angels respond to belief, not despair. When you declare those words, you remind darkness that your hope is anchored in a God who finishes what He starts. Writing faith over feelings is your act of rebellion against doubt. You're refusing to let your heart be ruled by temporary emptiness. You're telling yourself, my faith sees beyond the silence. That phrase becomes your shield when your thoughts try to convince you that God has forgotten. By saying, faith over feelings, You align your heart with heaven's rhythm. You're choosing to walk by spiritual sight, not by emotional blindness. Faith whispers, wait. When fear screams, it's over. It transforms the distance into divine preparation, turning your pain into a prophecy of fulfillment. So each time discouragement returns, whisper it again, faith over feelings. Say it until your spirit believes it. Let it echo in your prayers, your waiting, your stillness. Because in the end, emotions fade, but faith endures. And what endures will always find its way back to you. When it feels like it's over, heaven is often just beginning. You've had nights where you told yourself, it's done. I'm tired of hoping. You felt like your prayers bounced off the ceiling, that maybe you misheard God, or that your heart was just desperate enough to imagine signs that weren't really there. You looked around and saw no progress, no message, no shift, only silence. Yet, even in that stillness, heaven was writing. The breaking point is sacred territory. It's where God tests whether you believed in the promise or just in the comfort of progress. The moment you think it's over is often the very moment heaven is rearranging the pieces behind the scenes. The invisible work of God happens when you are sure nothing is moving. You don't see the roots growing beneath the soil, but they are. The deeper the delay, the stronger the foundation being built. You have cried, questioned, and felt forgotten, but those tears are prayers in liquid form. Heaven hears them all. Just because you don't see movement doesn't mean God stopped working. The silence is not rejection, it's protection. He's protecting what he's building from premature exposure. Sometimes, what looks like loss is divine covering. There are times when God hides progress from you because if you saw how close you really were, you'd rush the process. So he veils it in mystery. He allows endings to look final when they are really beginnings in disguise. What feels like goodbye is often heaven saying, wait here, I'm not done. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 33, verse 3. Call to me, and I will answer you, and show you great and mighty things which you do not know. This isn't just an invitation, it's a promise. When you reach the end of your strength, heaven extends revelation. God isn't silent because he's distant. He's silent because he's busy revealing in ways that words cannot express. You are standing at the edge of understanding, where human logic ends and divine revelation begins. What feels broken beyond repair is often the soil where God plants resurrection. You have to let the situation die so that only what was meant by heaven can rise. There is power in surrender. You cannot resurrect what you refuse to let go of. The same God who allowed the pause is the one who knows when to breathe life back into what's his. You may not see the connection now, but nothing has been wasted. Every unanswered message, every closed door, every lonely night, they're all part of your divine timeline. Heaven measures purpose in seasons, not seconds. What's delayed isn't denied, it's being designed. God doesn't forget what he authored. He finishes what he starts. In this silence, you are being stretched. Faith grows when feelings fail. You are learning to walk without visible proof. That's where real maturity begins, trusting God without needing a sign every moment. You are becoming stable, rooted, unshaken. You are learning to love without control and to believe without proof. And while you wait, heaven moves. The person you think you lost might also be in their own process, being refined, reshaped, and reawakened. Sometimes God separates two hearts, not to end the story, but to prepare both sides for the next chapter. The delay becomes divine training, a mirror for your faith. You are not forgotten. Heaven hasn't skipped your name. The story you thought ended is still being written in the unseen. You will look back and realize that what felt like the end was just the plot twist that set the stage for restoration. So, let the silence work. Let the stillness teach you. Let the absence remind you that not all progress is visible. Some of the greatest miracles happen quietly, in the background of your surrender. You are not in a dead end, you are in divine development. Hold your peace, and let God prove faithful. When it feels like it's over, remember, heaven doesn't operate on human clocks. What's meant for you is not slipping away, it's maturing. The story isn't finished. It's just hidden until the right time to reveal glory through what once looked gone. You are standing in the silence between promise and fulfillment, and heaven is still writing. The stillness is not absence, it is artistry. God is shaping both hearts quietly, aligning moments you cannot yet see. What feels paused is actually a pulse of divine preparation. Trust this hidden work. The unseen is not empty, it's essential. God conceals progress so you'll depend on His presence, not proof. Every unanswered question carries revelation waiting to bloom. You are being invited to believe without sight, to stay anchored when nothing seems secure, when it feels like it's over. Remind yourself, heaven never ends a story without revealing redemption. The silence you fear is the space where miracles form. God's timing is never late, it's layered with purpose. Wait with faith, for what's unseen will soon become undeniable. Sometimes, when hope seems dim, heaven sends confirmations in the smallest, quietest ways. You may be walking through your day when suddenly a verse, a dream, or a random song reaches into your heart and it feels like God just whispered your name again. That's how heaven moves. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it breathes softly, repeating, "I haven't forgotten you." You might open your Bible and your eyes fall on a verse that feels like it was written just for this season. You might overhear a conversation that repeats the very words you've been praying in silence. That's not coincidence, it's divine communication. God has many languages, and one of them is confirmation. He knows your heart is weary. He sees how you've waited, how you've tried to stay faithful, how you've prayed through tears that no one else has seen. So He sends reminders, gentle echoes of His promise to reassure you that His plan hasn't changed. Heaven doesn't forget what it has written. We are reminded through the writings of David in the book of Psalms. Chapter 37, verse 7, "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for Him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways, when they carry out their wicked schemes." Those words hold weight for your soul. They tell you that waiting isn't losing, it's trusting. Even when others seem to move forward while you feel left behind, heaven's timing is still precise. What belongs to you is not running away, it's maturing in the unseen. Every confirmation you receive is like a candle in the dark. One small flame might not light the whole room, but it keeps you from stumbling in despair. That is what God is doing for you, keeping your faith alive, one flame at a time. You may not see the entire map, but He keeps showing you just enough to take the next step. And while you wait, He's still working behind the scenes. The person God keeps choosing for you may also be receiving signs, dreams, or moments of conviction that draw them back toward divine order. Heaven is moving on both ends of the story, like a craftsman weaving two threads that will meet at the center. So don't rush the masterpiece. Let God continue painting in secret. Trust that his brush never slips. Every delay is a stroke of purpose. Every silence is part of the composition. Now, a small pause, because there's something tender I want to share with you. These words, these messages you receive here, they are part of a greater work God is doing across many hearts. Every view, every moment you spend listening, helps spread light where shadows have lived for too long. If you feel led, I invite you to take part in keeping this flame burning, like a traveler adding a drop of oil to the lamp so that others may find their way. Your support, whether through sharing, subscribing, or even donating, helps keep the message alive. This isn't a demand, not a condition, and never a price for God's word. It's an act of love, freely chosen. Think of it as placing another candle on the altar so that another weary soul might find hope when their world feels dark. If your heart stirs to give, do it quietly, sincerely, as worship. And if all you can offer is your time, your prayers, or simply liking or sharing this message, know that heaven counts that as seed too. Every act of kindness, every click, every whisper of yes is oil in the lamp of light. When you subscribe, when you share, when you give even a little, you're saying, let this flame keep glowing. You're joining the keepers of the fire, chosen ones who guard the light so it never goes out. You don't have to do it out of pressure. Do it out of peace. Clicking subscribe or sowing a seed through donation isn't payment, it's partnership. It's you placing a small spark into the lantern of God's message, helping it travel further, reach deeper, shine brighter. And as you do, may heaven multiply every seed you plant, whether it's a prayer, a share, or a gift back into your life in ways that only God can design. Because that's what he does. He takes what's given in faith and turns it into miracles. So, if this message has touched you, let your response be a quiet thank you to God. Press like if your heart feels seen. Share it as a way of lighting another's path. Subscribe if you want to keep walking with this light. Give if your spirit nudges you freely, joyfully, without obligation. You are part of this mission now, part of heaven's heartbeat on earth. And as long as there are hearts that need hope, this voice will keep speaking life. Together, we carry light, and together, we remind the world that God is still choosing, still confirming, still faithful. There are seasons when confusion tries to cloud what God has made clear. The enemy knows that if he can distort your perception, he can delay your obedience. So he stirs doubt, fear, and miscommunication between souls that heaven has called to walk in purpose together. You start to question everything: the signs, the timing, the connection, and you wonder if maybe you were wrong all along. But confusion is never from God. Peace is. When heaven ordains something, darkness always tries to interfere. It's not because you're weak, it's because you're chosen. You carry something that threatens the plans of the enemy. So he whispers lies to make you retreat, to make you settle, to make you believe that what's divine has died. But truth cannot be buried. When God speaks, his word doesn't return empty. It accomplishes exactly what he intended. The tension you feel is spiritual warfare. not emotional chaos. The confusion in communication, the sudden misunderstandings, the feelings of distance, all of it is resistance against divine order. The enemy knows that if he can make you give up in frustration, you will step out of alignment right before your breakthrough. That's why you must stay spiritually alert. According to what is revealed in the book of Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 12, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." This verse reminds you, the battle is not between you and them, it's between heaven and darkness. You are not fighting a person, you are standing against forces that fear your obedience. The moment you understand that, peace returns. You begin to fight differently, not with anger or silence, but with prayer and discernment. When God chooses two people for a divine purpose, He often allows opposition to test the foundation. It's easy to trust when things are clear, but real faith is proven in fog. The moments when you cannot see are the moments heaven watches how you move. Will you respond to fear, or will you stand on faith? Sometimes, the confusion is not even from outside, it's internal. Your heart wants to believe, but your mind keeps replaying disappointments. You've been wounded before, so you hesitate to hope again. But this connection feels different because it is different. It is not about mere emotion, it is about assignment. That's why the warfare feels personal. It's not just about love. It's about destiny. If you could see the spiritual realm, you'd realize how much is happening for your good right now. Angels are rearranging paths. Heaven is protecting conversations you never knew were under attack. What feels delayed is being defended. What seems silent is being secured. Don't let fear rewrite your faith. Don't let temporary confusion make you question eternal truths. God's promises are not fragile. They survive storms. He doesn't need your panic, He needs your posture. Every time you choose peace over panic, you win a battle you can't even see. And remember, this confusion doesn't mean absence. It often means something powerful is forming. The darker the night, the closer the dawn. God allows tension to birth revelation. What you perceive as warfare is actually awakening. Hold your ground. Pray instead of overthinking. Speak life instead of frustration. Let your spirit be louder than your emotions. Because when you refuse to bow to confusion, heaven begins to clear the fog. If this message reaches your heart, pause for a second. Breathe deeply. Let peace return. And in the comments, type 555. Not as a superstition, but as a prophetic act, a declaration that you choose divine clarity over confusion. When you write 555, you're saying, I'm aligning my spirit with heaven's order. I will not let the noise steal my discernment. I am grounded in faith. Those three numbers become a symbol of victory. A quiet whisper that says, even in the fog, I still see light. Keep standing. Keep trusting. Heaven is not silent. It's strategic. The interference will fade. The confusion will lift. What God has written will soon unfold in full clarity, and when it does, you'll understand why the battle had to be this fierce. When you type 555, you're doing more than leaving a number, you're releasing faith into motion. Those digits carry prophetic symbolism of divine alignment and grace multiplied. It's your way of saying, God, I trust your order, even when I don't understand the steps. Each 5 represents grace, and together they form a triple confirmation. Heaven hears that act of agreement. You're stepping out of confusion and into clarity, out of worry and into wisdom. By typing it, you're declaring that you no longer chase signs, you become one. So let those numbers be your silent prayer. Every time your heart wavers, whisper 555 again. Let it remind you that even in the fog, grace multiplies, clarity comes, and God's divine plan keeps unfolding exactly as He intended. The waiting has stretched longer than you expected. Days have turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Yet heaven remains silent. You've prayed, cried, and surrendered more times than you can count. But the answer hasn't arrived. It feels like God pressed pause while life kept moving. But what if the delay is not denial? What if it's divine refining in the waiting? God is not punishing you. He's purifying you. He's burning away impatience, pride, fear, and the need to control. The delay isn't empty, it's sacred. It's the furnace where character is forged. You see, promise without preparation becomes poison. What God is building in you right now must be able to hold the weight of the blessing without collapsing under it. The longer the wait, the greater the preparation. Heaven knows that quick miracles often fade, but slow transformations last. You are in the refining fire, and it's uncomfortable because fire doesn't ask permission to change you, it simply does. The flame of waiting burns away everything that's not meant to stay. You're not being left behind, you're being shaped. The process may feel like loss, but it's protection. God removes what cannot stand in your next season, even if that includes pieces of yourself. The refining fire exposes weakness not to shame you, but to strengthen you. It reveals what was hidden and polishes what was dull. The apostle reminds us in his first letter to Peter, chapter 1, verse 7, "These trials will show that your faith is genuine. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold, though your faith is far more precious than mere gold." That's exactly what's happening right now. You are being purified, not punished. Each delay, each unanswered prayer, each silent night, it's the fire refining your gold. God isn't trying to destroy you. He's removing everything that could destroy you later. When gold is refined, it must go through intense heat. The impurities rise to the surface, and the refiner carefully removes them, repeating the process until he can see his reflection in the metal. That's what God is doing with you. He's turning up the heat, not to harm you, but to see his reflection in your heart. It's not easy. There are moments when you want to quit, when you wonder if God even remembers your name. But the very fact that you're still holding on proves that you're being strengthened. You are not the same person who first began this journey. You are wiser, deeper, softer, and stronger. In the refining fire, your prayers become purer too. At first, you prayed for answers. Now, you pray for alignment. At first, you asked for speed. Now, you ask for strength. That shift is evidence of growth. Waiting transforms desperation into discernment. It teaches you that faith isn't measured by how quickly you receive, but by how steadfastly you believe. God's silence isn't a void, it's an anvil. It's where He shapes your patience, your humility, your resilience. You are learning to trust His rhythm, not your rush. The refining process takes as long as it needs to take. There are no shortcuts when God is perfecting character. Even now, something in you is changing. The pain that once felt unbearable now feels purposeful. The longing that once consumed you now drives you to prayer instead of panic. You are being forged into someone who can carry promise with purity. So, when you feel like giving up, remember the gold. Remember that fire doesn't destroy, it defines. You are not stuck, you are being sanctified. The promise hasn't left, it's simply being purified until it shines. One day, you will look back and thank God for every delay, every closed door, every unanswered prayer, because you'll see how each one contributed to the masterpiece He was forming within you. The refining season is never wasted. It's where the real beauty begins. Stay in the fire until He says it's finished. Trust the process even when you can't trace the plan. The same God who led you into this refining will lead you out. Radiant and renewed, what feels like delay now will soon reveal itself as divine design, proof that you were never waiting in vain, only being made ready. The refining season teaches you that strength is not built in comfort but in surrender. You are learning to bend without breaking, to trust without proof, to hope without guarantees. Every moment in the fire is sculpting endurance into your spirit's foundation. God is purging impatience and planting wisdom. He's teaching you how to recognize His voice in stillness, how to stay soft when life feels hard. The heat you feel isn't punishment, it's transformation. Every tear that falls is liquid gold, proof that you're still becoming. When the refining ends, you'll emerge unrecognizable, not because you lost yourself, but because you've finally become who heaven always saw. The fire will fade, but the shine will remain, testifying that waiting was never wasted. It was worship in disguise. You begin to see it more clearly now, the reason that person has such a hold on your spirit. It's not just affection or memory, it's reflection. They mirror pieces of your soul that you didn't even know existed. When you look at them, you see both your purpose and your pain staring back at you. This connection is not random, it is revelation. God uses people like mirrors to show you who you are becoming. The person He keeps choosing for you doesn't simply complement your strengths, they expose your blind spots. They awaken both your calling and your character. Through them, you see how much you've grown and how much you still need grace. Divine connections always reveal both beauty and brokenness, because true purpose is birthed where the two meet. There's something sacred about the way your spirit recognizes them. Before words are spoken, you feel the familiarity, a sense that you've known them longer than your timeline suggests. That's not imagination, it's remembrance. Your spirit remembers what heaven wrote long before earth began. Some bonds are written in eternity's ink, not in human circumstance. But here's the truth, most overlooked reflection is not always comfortable. When God places someone who mirrors your soul, it forces you to confront parts of yourself you'd rather hide. You see your fears reflected in their struggles, your pride reflected in their silence, your love reflected in their patience. It's unsettling, but it's holy. God uses them as a living mirror to refine your perception of love and purpose. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Proverbs, chapter 27, verse 17, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." That's what's happening between you and this person. Heaven designed this connection not to flatter you, but to sharpen you. every friction, every misunderstanding, every tender moment, it's all part of the shaping. The tension isn't meant to break you apart, but to grind away what doesn't belong. Sometimes, you are the mirror for them too. The way you love, the way you forgive, the way you endure, all of it challenges their spirit to rise. They may not even realize it yet, but heaven is using your light to awaken something dormant within them. Your connection is a divine exchange, each of you helping the other become who God intended. That's why it feels spiritual. Even when it's silent, there's a constant pull, a rhythm that no distance can disrupt. You are tied by purpose, not possession. It's not about controlling or claiming, it's about awakening. Through this person, you are learning to love without conditions, to see with compassion, and to grow without resentment. But reflection can be painful too. When their flaws mirror your own, you are tempted to retreat. You may think, we're too different, or this is too hard. Yet, those differences are divine tools for transformation. You're not meant to be identical, you're meant to be refined through contrast. Iron doesn't sharpen iron without sparks, and love doesn't mature without truth. There are moments when you feel overwhelmed by the emotional weight of it all. You wish you could just forget them. Move on. Start fresh. But something deeper keeps calling you back, reminding you that growth happens through confrontation, not avoidance. God won't let you run from what He intends to heal through reflection. You're learning that divine connections aren't built for comfort, they're built for calling. They don't always make you feel good, but they always make you better. Every time you choose forgiveness over frustration, patience over pride, compassion over criticism, you polish your reflection until it gleams with divine light. And in that light, you begin to see something breathtaking. This connection is teaching you how to see yourself as God sees you, flawed, yet chosen, wounded, yet worthy, unfinished, yet deeply loved. That realization changes everything. You stop chasing perfection and start pursuing purpose. You understand that love isn't about completing each other, but about reflecting Christ within each other. The mirror shifts from showing what's wrong to revealing what's sacred. You start to thank God for every test, every tear, every tender moment that shaped you. Because now you realize it was never just about them, it was about what God was birthing in you through them. You are both mirrors and messengers, carrying light back and forth until both reflections glow with heaven's brilliance. And maybe that's the true mystery of this connection. It's not about possession, but transformation. God didn't send them to fill your emptiness. He sent them to reveal your wholeness. Through this reflection, you see that divine love doesn't just bind two hearts, it births destiny. So let the reflection continue. Let the light bounce back and forth between your souls until every shadow fades. Because when God uses someone to mirror your calling, it means He's preparing you both for something far greater than you imagined, something eternal, something holy, something beautifully unfinished. There comes a moment when doubt creeps in like fog at dawn. You wake up and feel the heaviness of uncertainty pressing against your chest. You wonder if you misheard God, if all the waiting, the signs, and the prayers were just illusions. You reach that place where giving up feels easier than believing one more time. This is the moment heaven watches closest. Every chosen one faces that breaking point, the place between faith and fatigue. You have been strong for so long, holding on to promises that seem suspended in eternity. You've smiled while your heart trembled, encouraged others while quietly questioning if hope was worth it anymore. But even in that weariness, something deep inside you refuses to die. That's not stubbornness, that's divine endurance. When you are at the edge of surrender, that's where heaven often intervenes. God doesn't rush to remove the pain, He reveals purpose in it. The breaking point is not your ending, it's your unveiling. You are being shown who you truly are when everything else falls away. The strength you didn't know existed is being born through exhaustion. The ancient words recorded in the book of Galatians, chapter 6, verse 9, still echo today. Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Those words are not merely comfort, they are command. They tell you that the harvest is already scheduled, that the blessing you've been fighting for has a divine timestamp. Heaven hasn't forgotten the promise, it's preparing the moment for your arrival. You just have to endure long enough to see it unfold. You've come too far to quit now. Every sleepless night, every prayer whispered through tears, every act of faith when you didn't feel strong, it all counts. Heaven has recorded every moment. None of it has been wasted. You are closer than you think, nearer than you feel. The pressure you sense is proof that the birthing is near. Sometimes, God allows you to feel empty so that He can fill you with something eternal. You think you've run out of strength, but what's really happening is that you're transitioning from human endurance to divine empowerment. When your strength ends, grace begins. The edge of surrender becomes the doorway to breakthrough. The temptation to give up is not proof of failure, it's proof of importance. The enemy doesn't fight what isn't valuable. The warfare surrounding your promise is evidence of its worth. If it weren't significant, it wouldn't be under such attack. You're not losing, you're laboring. The pain you feel is not defeat, it's delivery. You may feel unseen, but heaven's eyes are fixed on you. God has been walking beside you in silence, not because He's absent, but because He's strengthening your sight. Silence doesn't mean He stopped speaking, it means He's teaching you to hear Him in new ways. You are standing in the space between almost and arrival. This is the valley of decision where faith must speak louder than fear. Every second you endure here multiplies your reward in the next season. The harvest doesn't grow in sunshine alone, it's the rain and the storms that make the roots deep. So don't quit. Not now. The same God who began this story will finish it with beauty. You will not be left empty-handed. You will not leave this season broken, you will leave it transformed. Now, take a quiet breath and write in the comments, "I still believe." When you type those words, you're doing more than commenting, you're declaring war against despair. You're telling the heavens and the darkness alike, I refuse to give up. Those 3 words become your shield, your anthem, your spiritual lifeline. They remind your soul that faith doesn't end in the valley, it endures until glory. Keep believing, even when your heart feels heavy, because what's ahead of you is worth every second of the waiting. The promise hasn't changed, only your perspective has grown strong enough to hold it. When you write, "I still believe," you are planting a flag of faith in the ground of your struggle. Those 3 words are not small, they are sacred. They say, even when nothing makes sense, my hope will not move. Heaven hears that declaration like thunder. Each time you speak, "I still believe," you break another chain of fear. You silence the voice that says you're too late or too broken. That phrase is your weapon. It pierces despair and reminds your soul that God's promises do not expire. So whisper it again when doubt returns, I still believe. Let it echo through your heart like a steady drumbeat of trust. Because belief, even when bruised, is the purest form of worship. And when you least expect it, that faith will open doors no striving could. Heaven always responds to endurance. I still believe isn't just a phrase, it's a key, unlocking promises hidden behind the waiting, reminding you that surrender is never the end, it's the beginning. Sometimes, just when you're ready to walk away, heaven intervenes. You don't plan it, you don't expect it, but there it is. A message you weren't looking for. A song that suddenly plays. A dream that feels too precise to be random. Divine encounters rarely arrive with warning, they simply appear. Quiet, yet undeniable. Like sunlight breaking through clouds you thought would never move. You feel your heart stir again. Hope, which you thought had died, flickers back to life. You realize that what you called the end was merely the turning of a page. God has been aligning the pieces all along, rearranging circumstances, reshaping hearts, setting the stage for His timing to reveal itself. Nothing has been wasted. Every silence, every delay, every prayer was part of the orchestration. Divine encounters don't happen because you chased them. They happen because you stayed faithful when nothing made sense. Heaven rewards endurance with revelation. And when that moment comes, it feels like the world pauses, like God Himself leans close and says, "See, I never left." We find in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 1, verse 37, "For with God, nothing shall be impossible." That's not a poetic promise, it's a living truth. It means that no distance is too wide, no misunderstanding too deep, no heart too hardened for God to restore. When the divine encounter arrives, it often carries quiet power. The smallest gesture, a glance, a word, a memory becomes charged with purpose. You feel it. You sense heaven's fingerprints all over it. The key is to recognize it when it happens. God's hand doesn't always appear in fireworks. Sometimes it's hidden in whispers. Don't dismiss the gentle nudges, the coincidences, the sudden peace after a prayer, the timing that feels too perfect to ignore. These are not accidents, they are answers. Heaven speaks in layers, and divine encounters are its language of reassurance. But here's something to remember. Every encounter carries responsibility. It's not just about reunion, it's about revelation. What you do with the moment determines what heaven does next. If you handle it with humility, patience, and grace, God multiplies its meaning. If you rush it with fear or pride, you risk fracturing what He's still healing. Let your heart stay tender. Let the encounter remind you that faith was never wasted. What returns in this season comes not as a test, but as a testimony. You endured the silence, and now heaven honors your endurance. And as this message reaches your heart, let's pause together, not to beg, but to breathe. You've walked through fire to reach this clarity. You've stayed when others ran, believed when logic mocked you. That same faith is the reason you're here now, listening, awakening, remembering that God still writes stories with divine precision. If this message has touched something deep in you, know that it's not an accident. This space exists because hearts like yours keep its light burning. These words are oil in the lamp meant to guide, heal, and remind. And like any flame, it only continues when many hands protect it from the wind. If you feel led, you can help keep this flame alive, not through obligation, but through love. A simple share is like passing a torch to another wandering heart. A like is a quiet amen. A subscription is like saying, keep this lighthouse standing. And if you choose to donate, think of it as pouring a drop of oil into a shared lantern, small but vital. Each act, no matter how small, carries light forward. You're not giving to a person, you're sowing into purpose. Every click, every share, every seed keeps the message reaching those who need to hear that God hasn't forgotten them. And if all you can give is your time or your prayers, that's holy too. Prayer is breath to this mission. Sharing is wind beneath its wings. Your support of any kind is never a transaction. It's an offering of light. No pressure, no demand, just invitation. When hearts move together, light multiplies. And maybe that's what heaven wants to see, a people who still believe in generosity without expectation, in kindness without applause, in faith that moves quietly but powerfully. So, as you listen now, if something inside whispers yes, follow it, like, share, subscribe, or give only if it feels right in your spirit. Because every act born of peace carries heaven's blessing. And if all you do is whisper a prayer, that's enough. Together, we are keepers of the same flame, chosen ones carrying light through a dark world. God is still orchestrating divine encounters, still aligning destinies, still speaking through hearts like yours. The story isn't over, it's unfolding. One act of faith, one spark of love, one shared light at a time. And as this flame keeps burning, may your heart remember you are part of its glow. Every act of faith adds warmth to the world. Together, we keep the light alive, proving that even the smallest spark, shared in love, can chase away great darkness. There comes a moment when everything that once confused you begins to make sense. The delays, the disappointments, the detours, all of them fit together like pieces of a divine mosaic. You realize that God never forgot. He was simply preparing you for the perfect timing of His plan. What felt like unanswered prayers were actually seeds being buried deep in the soil of purpose. They had to die before they could bloom. When the timing of heaven arrives, it comes softly but powerfully. It doesn't need an announcement. It feels like peace settling into your chest. Like everything inside you exhales at once. The same situation that once caused anxiety now brings assurance. That's the mark of divine timing, when what once broke you now builds you. You begin to see how God's delays were never about punishment, they were about protection. If He had given you what you wanted when you wanted it, you might have ruined it. You weren't ready then. They weren't ready then. But now, heaven has begun to align the paths, the hearts, and the circumstances that once seemed scattered. God's timing is not random, it's rhythmic. Every pause has purpose. Every weight is woven into the greater symphony of destiny. The moment you stop trying to force the rhythm and start flowing with it, peace enters. You stop striving to make it happen and start trusting that it already is. The Apostle Paul wrote in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." This verse becomes the lens through which you finally see clearly. All things doesn't mean only the beautiful parts. It means the tears, the silence, the seasons of distance, and the moments of doubt. God wastes nothing. What looked like detours were divine routes to maturity. What felt like loss was redirection toward purpose. You begin to see why you couldn't have received the promise earlier. You needed the lessons. You needed the heartbreak to teach you compassion. You needed the waiting to teach you patience. Every chapter you thought was random has become the prelude to restoration. The revelation comes quietly. God's timing is not about delay, it's about readiness. Heaven never hurries because it doesn't need to. When God finally moves, everything falls into place so perfectly that you realize He was never late, He was exact. This realization humbles you. You stop resenting the wait and start revering it. You understand that the waiting season wasn't wasted time, it was sacred training. You were learning how to handle the promise with wisdom. The same things that once made you cry now make you grateful, because they shaped the version of you that can finally receive. Sometimes, divine timing looks like nothing changing, until suddenly everything changes. One conversation, one unexpected encounter, one moment of clarity can shift the entire story. That's how heaven works quietly. Suddenly, perfectly. The alignment feels effortless, not because it's easy, but because it's ordained. As you walk into this new awareness, you start to carry peace differently. You don't rush anymore, you rest. You don't panic when plans fall apart, because you've learned that divine timing sometimes dismantles what you built, so it can construct what you truly need. The collapse was never chaos, it was correction. You realize that trusting God's timing is an act of surrender. It means accepting that He sees the entire picture while you only see fragments. It's faith in its purest form, believing that unseen alignment is happening even when evidence is absent. So now, when you remember that person, you no longer ache with desperation, you breathe with trust. You say, if it's meant, it will align. If it's delayed, it's divine. You don't have to chase. You don't have to fear. You just have to stay ready. And as you stay ready, heaven continues to move, pieces you don't even know exist. People are being positioned, conversations prepared, hearts softened. You don't have to force it, you only have to stay faithful. When the time is right, nothing can stop it. That's the beauty of prophetic timing. It always reveals why it couldn't happen sooner. When the fullness of time comes, it comes with favor, clarity, and peace that can't be shaken. The promise doesn't just return, it matures. It fits perfectly, because now you fit perfectly with it. You stand in awe, realizing that every unanswered question, every delay, every lonely night had purpose. It wasn't wasted, it was woven. And now, as divine timing begins to manifest, you understand the truth you couldn't see before. Heaven was never late. It was simply preparing you for the kind of blessing that only arrives when you're truly ready to hold it. Grace is not weakness, it's strength wrapped in gentleness. It takes more courage to forgive than to fight, more faith to release than to retaliate. In this part of your journey, God isn't asking you to win an argument. He's asking you to win a battle within your own heart. The other person may never apologize, never understand, never match the depth of what you carried. But grace isn't about fairness. It's about freedom. You have held pain long enough. You've rehearsed conversations in your mind, trying to make sense of what went wrong. You've asked heaven, why did I have to love them so deeply, only to lose them? But grace whispers, because love is the only classroom that teaches eternity. You were never meant to harden, you were meant to heal. According to what is written in the book of Colossians, chapter 3, verse 13, bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It means refusing to let what happened poison your purpose. When you forgive, you reclaim your peace. You no longer carry the weight of proving anything to anyone. You release them into God's hands, trusting that He can reach places your words never could. Choosing grace over pride is one of the highest forms of spiritual maturity. Pride wants to prove. Grace wants to heal. Pride keeps score. Grace keeps faith. When you let grace lead, heaven fights for you in ways you could never orchestrate. There's a quiet strength in those who forgive. The world sees softness as weakness, but heaven sees it as divine authority. You are never more like God than when you choose mercy over bitterness. It's not about who was right, it's about who remained righteous. Grace doesn't erase memory, it transforms it. What once triggered pain becomes a testimony of growth. You start to see the story differently, not as rejection, but as redirection. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? That shift changes everything. Maybe they're not ready to see what you see. Maybe they're still walking through their own lessons. Grace gives them that space. You don't chase. You don't condemn. You simply bless from afar and let God do the rest. That's what true love does. It releases without resentment, praise without possession, and hopes without pressure. You were never meant to stay stuck in cycles of overthinking and regret. Grace breaks those circles. It's the hand of heaven pulling you out of bitterness into breakthrough. You can forgive and still guard your peace. You can release and still love from a distance. And the beautiful thing, when you forgive, you don't just free them, you free yourself. Your spirit becomes lighter. Your prayers gain power. You stop dragging yesterday into tomorrow. The same God who sees your pain will honor your purity of heart. So, breathe deeply and let go. The love that's meant for you will never need to be forced. The one who's truly yours will return in God's timing. But until then, your heart must stay clean enough to receive what's coming. This act of forgiveness isn't weakness, it's preparation. It's the final clearing before the new season begins. You're not losing by showing grace, you're leveling up in glory. If you feel this stirring in your spirit, write this in the comments: 888. The number 888 represents new beginnings, resurrection, and divine restoration. When you type it, you're not just leaving a number, you're declaring, I choose grace. I choose to be free. You're stepping into a new chapter where peace, not pain, leads your way. So let 888 be your seal of release. Let it remind you that what was meant for harm is turning into healing. Heaven has seen your forgiveness, and in return, it's preparing favor that will overflow into every area of your life. When you type 888, you're proclaiming a sacred truth. My heart chooses resurrection over resentment. Those digits echo heaven's rhythm, each 8 symbolizing the endless cycle of grace that keeps renewing your soul. It's a statement of release, a gentle surrender into divine restoration. Every time you write 888, imagine doors opening in unseen realms. It's not superstition, it's symbolism. You're choosing to step away from the ashes of yesterday and into the dawn of new beginnings. The same God who saw your tears now prepares joy to replace them. This act of faith declares, "What once broke me now builds me." So whisper it softly, 888. Let it mark the end of carrying what no longer belongs and the start of walking in freedom. Each curve of the number mirrors eternity, reminding you that grace never runs out. What you release through forgiveness will return multiplied as peace, purpose, and unstoppable favor from heaven itself. You begin to understand now that this connection was never just about two hearts finding each other. It was about two purposes colliding under heaven's design. The weight you've carried, the emotions you've endured, the spiritual tension you've felt, it was all preparation for something far greater than human affection. This connection was a divine assignment. There are certain people God sends into your life not only to love, but to awaken destiny. They don't come to complete you, they come to call you higher. Through them, God reveals layers of your calling you would never have discovered alone. They trigger your transformation, sometimes through comfort, sometimes through chaos, but always through purpose. This is why it has felt so different, so consuming, so sacred. Their presence pulls something eternal out of you. It's as if your spirit recognizes that together, you are meant to impact the world in a way neither could alone. It's not about romantic fulfillment, it's about kingdom fulfillment. Heaven always pairs people for purpose, not for convenience. You've been feeling the pressure of this assignment because heaven knows what's at stake. The light you carry together disrupts darkness. The love you share reflects the gospel itself. Grace meeting grace. Redemption meeting redemption. The warfare has been so intense because your union threatens the plans of the enemy. When two chosen souls align, the atmosphere shifts. The Word of God declares in the book of Esther, chapter 4, verse 14, "And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" Those words are a mirror to your moment. You have been positioned, not by accident, but by divine strategy. Everything you've endured has prepared you for this very time. The pain, the waiting, the learning, it's all been forming the vessel required for this assignment. You were chosen to carry something sacred, and that calling comes with weight. You start to realize that the connection isn't meant to consume your identity, but to clarify it. The person God keeps highlighting in your spirit was never the destination, they were a divine instrument. Through them, God has been teaching you how to love with endurance, to forgive with wisdom, and to lead with humility. When you stop seeing the relationship as mere attachment and start seeing it as an assignment, everything changes. You no longer feel desperate, you feel directed. You no longer cling, you cooperate. You begin to move with the understanding that you're both part of a greater narrative, written by hands that see the end from the beginning. The weight of this calling can be heavy. Some days, it feels like too much, like carrying the vision alone while waiting for them to awaken to theirs. But even in that, heaven is at work. God often awakens one heart before the other to build intercession, not isolation. You are not waiting alone, you are standing in the gap. This season has been your spiritual boot camp. Every disappointment refined your discernment. Every delay strengthened your faith. Every moment of loneliness taught you how to depend on God more than human connection. And through that dependence, your calling matured. You are not here just to survive your story. You are here to steward it. The experiences you've carried, the wisdom you've gained, the compassion you've developed, they are all tools for ministry. You are meant to pour into others what was once your pain. That's the divine exchange, suffering transformed into service, wounds turned into wisdom. And as you walk forward, you start to feel something shift inside you. You no longer crave validation, you crave impact. You no longer ask, "When will it happen?" but rather, "How can I prepare?" That's the sign that your heart has aligned with heaven's rhythm. The calling has taken root. This connection, this story, isn't just about two lives intertwining. It's about two flames igniting. Together, you are meant to illuminate what darkness tried to hide. Whether that person stands beside you now or not, the purpose remains. The call has already begun. You were chosen not just for love, but for legacy. The connection may have awakened you, but it was God who anointed you. And as you continue walking in obedience, you'll realize that every trial was necessary, because only refined hearts can carry divine missions. Only healed souls can handle holy callings. You are no longer waiting for the story to unfold, you are already living its purpose. The weight you feel is proof that heaven trusts you with something eternal. And one day soon, you'll see why every chapter had to happen exactly the way it did. You were never meant to carry this calling alone. Heaven surrounds you with unseen strength. Every step forward, even trembling, echoes through eternity. What you birth through obedience will outlive your name. Because divine assignments never end, they multiply. And when your purpose meets theirs in perfect timing, it will not be forced, it will flow. Two stories, once refined by fire, will merge like rivers joining the sea. Together, you'll reflect heaven's glory, love turned into legacy, faith turned into flame. There comes a point where understanding fades and only trust remains. You've prayed for answers, begged for clarity, searched for signs, and still, God remains silent. But deep inside, something whispers, "Keep walking." You realize that faith isn't about having all the details. It's about obeying the last thing God told you, even when you don't see the next step. Standing in obedience is one of the hardest tests a chosen one faces. It means staying in alignment when emotions scream rebellion. It means choosing surrender over control, peace over panic, and trust over logic. You may not know how it will work out, but you know who holds the outcome. That's what obedience really is, trust in motion. Obedience doesn't always feel spiritual. Sometimes it feels lonely. Sometimes it feels like sacrifice. But what you surrender in obedience, heaven multiplies in purpose. When God tells you to wait, to stay silent, to love without guarantee, He isn't being cruel, He's cultivating your character. He's preparing you for what's coming next. Because purpose cannot rest on disobedient foundations, heaven speaks clearly through the writings in the book of Deuteronomy. Chapter 5, verse 33. Walk in obedience to all that the Lord your God has commanded you, so that you may live and prosper and prolong your days in the land that you will possess. Those words carry power. They remind you that obedience isn't a restriction, it's a key. Every step of obedience unlocks something new in the spirit. You may not see it right away, but heaven notices. Angels move at the sound of obedience. The unseen realm shifts when you simply say, Yes, Lord. The problem is that obedience rarely feels glamorous. It asks for humility, for consistency, for faith that doesn't need recognition. It asks you to do the right thing even when no one claps, even when no one sees. Yet, that hidden obedience is where heaven's favor is formed. God rewards what's done in secret with blessings that overflow in public. There are times when obedience looks like letting go. Other times, it looks like holding on longer than your strength allows. Both require faith. Both require silence in a world that demands explanation. You're not called to explain your obedience. You're called to live it. The fruits will speak for themselves. Each step you take in faith, even when trembling, writes a new line in your testimony. The days you almost gave up but didn't. The moments you chose peace instead of panic. Those are the invisible victories that shape your crown. Heaven doesn't measure your success by how much you control it, measures it by how deeply you trust. You are learning that obedience is not a one-time event, it's a lifestyle. It's saying yes to God in small things, even when no one's watching. It's trusting Him when He closes doors that once looked perfect. It's staying still when everything inside wants to run. It's forgiving when it would be easier to forget. This is the narrow road few choose to walk. Yet it leads to the highest reward. The closer you walk with God, the less He explains. He stops convincing you and starts trusting you to follow without question. That's spiritual maturity, to obey without constant reassurance. To stay faithful even when you don't understand. You've come too far to turn back now. Obedience brought you through storms before, and it will carry you through this one too. The same God who asked you to stay the course is already preparing the next season. You may not see the outcome, but every act of surrender is moving you closer to it. And one day, you'll look back and realize that your obedience was never in vain. The yes you whispered in the dark will become the breakthrough you celebrate in the light. What you release in faith today will return multiplied in tomorrow's harvest. So stand firm, even when the way is unclear. Keep your hands open, your heart steady, your spirit listening. Heaven honors obedience more than perfection. And when the time is right, the pieces will align so beautifully that you'll realize obedience wasn't the price, it was the protection. Obedience refines you into someone the promise can trust. Each time you say yes, despite fear, you carve deeper roots of faith. Heaven watches closely, recording silent sacrifices as eternal seeds. One obedient heart can shift generations. For surrender always births something that self-will never could. When you obey, you partner with unseen forces of grace. Every quiet act becomes a ripple touching distant shores. You may never witness its reach, but heaven measures obedience by impact, not applause. Each step forward in faith tells the universe God is still worthy, even when life is unclear. In the end, obedience becomes your worship song, simple, steady, sacred. It transforms uncertainty into intimacy, turning every unanswered question into devotion. You realize the true miracle isn't the outcome, it's who you became while trusting without knowing. Something begins to shift. The resistance that once stood like a mountain starts to tremble. You sense it not just around you, but within you. The tension that's lingered for so long begins to loosen. The walls that once separated hearts, dreams, and understanding start to crack under the quiet pressure of grace. You can almost hear heaven whisper, "Now, watch what I've been preparing all along." The breaking of resistance doesn't happen with thunder, it happens with surrender. Sometimes it's a small conversation that feels ordinary but carries the fragrance of destiny. Sometimes it's an apology, a message, a meeting that feels divinely timed. You can feel heaven moving between every word, orchestrating what no effort of yours could have arranged. What once felt impossible begins to open. Hearts soften, minds shift. The heavy air of misunderstanding starts to clear, and peace enters where chaos once reigned. You realize that God's plan was never for you to fight the battle alone. He was breaking resistance in ways unseen, as it was proclaimed in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 2, verse 26, "And they may come to their senses and escape from the snare of the devil, who has taken them captive to do his will." This verse paints a picture of awakening of hearts and minds, being freed from confusion, fear, and pride. What was once tangled begins to untie. The resistance you've been facing isn't just about circumstances, it's about souls returning to alignment. Heaven is reclaiming what belongs to light. And as things start to shift, so does your heart. You realize that this battle was never about proving anything, it was about becoming someone new. The version of you that once fought to be seen now simply shines. The one who sought answers now carries peace instead. That's the sign that heaven has already won inside you. When God breaks resistance, He doesn't just move circumstances, He transforms character. He changes not just the situation, but the people in it. The person who once misunderstood you begins to see with new clarity. The walls fall, and what's revealed is not brokenness, but beauty. In this moment, gratitude takes the place of striving. You no longer need to chase or control. You see how every delay, every heartbreak, every silent season prepared the soil for this restoration. And as peace settles in, you can't help but whisper, "Thank you, God. You knew exactly what you were doing." Now, before we move further, pause here for a breath. Let's talk, heart to heart. These words that reach you today, they're more than sentences, they're seeds. Every message that's been spoken here is like light traveling across distance, finding hearts that need warmth. And you, dear listener, are part of how that light continues to shine. If this message has reached your soul, let it move through you like a ripple of gratitude. Maybe it's through a simple gesture, liking this message as a silent amen, or sharing it like passing a torch to someone wandering in the dark. Each act is small, but together they become constellations, tiny stars lighting the sky for others. And when words rise within you, don't keep them hidden. Leave a comment as if you're placing another stone on a growing path. Your reflection may become the step someone else needs to keep walking. Each thought you share is light taking form, a spark joining the fire. And if your heart feels stirred to do more, then subscribing becomes more than a click. It's a way of saying, "I want to stay close to the light." You're not following a voice. You're joining a movement of faith that reminds the world that God still speaks through ordinary words and willing hearts. And for those who feel led, giving or donating isn't about obligation, it's about oil for the lamp. Just as travelers once kept the temple lamps burning through quiet offerings, your giving becomes flame-sustaining light. You're helping the message travel further, reach deeper, and touch hearts that may be standing where you once stood in need of hope. But hear this clearly, it's never a demand. It's an invitation. The most powerful giving comes not from pressure, but from peace. Whether you give, share, comment, or simply listen with an open heart, you are part of this mission. Every act of kindness, every whisper of prayer, every small response helps the light multiply. If you feel something stirring as you read these words, follow that peace. Like, share, comment your heart, subscribe, or give only if it feels right in your spirit. Because heaven never forces generosity. It breathes through hearts that understand love must keep flowing to stay alive. Together, we're building something that isn't made of stone or screens, but of stories. Your story, my story, God's story, intertwining in faith. The resistance has broken, and now the light moves freely again. And as it does, so will you. Restoration doesn't always arrive with a trumpet. Sometimes it slips in quietly, like dawn after a long night. You don't even realize at first that the light has returned. You simply notice that your breathing is easier, your prayers less desperate, your heart no longer aching like before. That's how divine restoration feels: gentle, steady, holy. The reunion that heaven arranges isn't always a dramatic scene of tears and apologies. Sometimes it's a gradual unfolding, like the first green after winter, slow and tender. What God restores, He does with precision. Nothing forced, nothing rushed. Every moment feels aligned, as if time itself has finally caught up to what heaven wrote long ago. The Word of God reminds us in the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 25, "I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten." Those words are not poetic exaggeration, they are prophetic truth. God doesn't just restore what was lost, He redeems the time that seemed wasted. Every delay, every heartbreak, every silence, He gathers them all and turns them into beauty. Restoration in God's hands is not replacement, it's resurrection. You begin to notice signs of alignment again. Conversations that once ended in silence now carry peace. The person who once felt distant starts to reappear in subtle ways. You see growth, humility, and understanding in places where confusion once lived. But even more profound than the external change is the internal one. Your heart no longer clings in fear. It trusts in faith. You realize that restoration was never just about them returning. It was about you becoming ready to receive them differently. You're no longer desperate for closure or control. You've learned that real love doesn't chase, it attracts through peace, through presence, through spiritual maturity. What comes back to you now comes because it's meant, not because it's manipulated. And as things begin to realign, you see how every chapter had purpose. The distance taught you discernment. The waiting taught you wisdom. The heartbreak taught you compassion. Without the breaking, you wouldn't recognize the blessing. Heaven used the storm to clear your view. You may find yourself reconnecting in ways that feel effortless, as if all the noise between you was just preparation for clarity. There's laughter again, light again, ease again. But deeper than that, there's gratitude. Gratitude that the restoration isn't a repeat of the past, it's a renewal for the future. This is the moment when you finally understand that divine connections never truly die. They transform. God doesn't resurrect what will ruin you. If it's been restored, it's because both hearts are ready to hold the promise. What once was fragile has now become fortified by grace. You see now that what was broken wasn't the bond, it was the timing. God had to break the rhythm so that both of you could learn the melody of His will. Now, when you walk side by side again, it's not out of fear of losing, but out of joy in growing. Restoration becomes partnership, not dependency. The beauty of divine restoration is that it reflects God's own nature. He doesn't just fix, He perfects. He doesn't just give back, He gives beyond. What He restores is always stronger, purer, and more purposeful than before. As your paths align again, heaven begins to pour peace into the spaces where pain once echoed. It feels unfamiliar at first, so gentle, so simple, but that's because peace, not passion, was always meant to be the foundation. What God restores, He roots in peace so that nothing can shake it again. You begin to walk differently, no longer anxious, no longer waiting for something to collapse. You move with quiet confidence, knowing that what's built on divine timing cannot crumble under human pressure. You've stopped chasing signs and started carrying them. You've become the evidence of God's faithfulness. And maybe, one day, soon, you'll look into that person's eyes and realize that you both made it. Through storms, silence, and surrender. You reach this place where love no longer needs to be proven because it's been purified. The reunion isn't just about hearts meeting again, it's about purpose resurrected, destiny fulfilled, and promises kept. Heaven never wastes a waiting heart, and God never restores halfway. When He brings something back, He makes sure it returns whole, healed, and holy. Now, as the story unfolds, peace becomes your rhythm. You don't need grand gestures or perfect explanations. You simply live in gratitude, carrying the quiet certainty that what God restores stays restored. Because when heaven writes reconciliation, no hand on earth can erase it. Restoration teaches you that real miracles rarely shout, they breathe. You don't have to announce what God has renewed. The peace within you will speak louder than any story could. Wholeness needs no witness. Its quiet glow testifies all by itself. And as you walk forward, you carry heaven's signature within you, proof that grace rebuilds better than time ever could. What was once broken now becomes your offering of hope to others, a reminder that God restores, not for display, but for destiny. Now, everything begins to make sense. The waiting, the pain, the silence, the moments when you almost let go, they were all threads in a tapestry that heaven was weaving from the start. You stand now in the light of understanding, and it's softer than you imagined. The sharp edges of disappointment have become smooth stones of wisdom. The confusion that once clouded your vision has cleared, leaving a quiet knowing it was always for this. You see that God never withheld anything from you. He was shaping everything for you. The very prayers that seemed unanswered were answered in ways beyond what words could ask. Every detour you took still led you to destiny, because divine direction never wastes motion. You were being refined for this moment, the moment where love meets purpose, and purpose meets peace. You realize now that endurance was your crown all along, the patience that kept you standing when others fell away, the forgiveness that stretched your spirit when pride wanted to harden it, the obedience that held you in alignment even when you didn't understand. These became jewels of character adorning your faith. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 25, verse 23, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. That's what heaven whispers to your heart now, not in a loud voice, but in the gentle rhythm of peace. You've passed the tests of waiting, believing, and forgiving. You've proven that faith is not a feeling, it's a decision repeated daily until it becomes identity. And now, the reward isn't just what you receive, it's who you've become. The person standing in this moment is not the same one who began this journey. You've learned to walk by spirit, not by sight. You've learned that divine love isn't about possession, it's about purpose fulfilled through two surrendered hearts. You carry a wisdom now that can't be learned in calm seas. It's the kind forged in storms. And maybe that's the secret of the chosen ones, not that their path is easy, but that they keep walking even when it's unclear. You've carried the weight of promise through valleys and deserts, through silence and sorrow, and yet here you stand, still believing, still shining. Heaven honors that kind of faith. The crown of endurance is not made of gold, it's made of grace. It sits invisibly on your head, marking you as one who didn't quit when quitting made sense, one who trusted when logic failed, one who loved when it hurt to do so. The world may not see it, but heaven does. Every act of quiet faith has become part of your legacy. You were chosen for this exact moment. The light you carry has been tempered by darkness, and now it shines steady. The love that once trembled now stands firm. The calling that once felt heavy now feels holy. You've moved from striving to shining, from surviving to serving, and everything that was meant to break you has become the reason you're unbreakable. This is what divine fulfillment feels like, not loud, not rushed, but sacred. You no longer chase signs because you've become one. You no longer need constant reassurance because you've learned how to rest in revelation. You don't demand the outcome, you dwell in obedience. And that's where peace lives, inside the heart that trusts completely. Look at how far you've come, from confusion to clarity, from waiting to walking, from wounds to wisdom. Heaven didn't forget you, it prepared you. The connection that once felt fragile now stands as proof that God finishes what He starts. The love you carry now isn't desperate, it's divine. It mirrors heaven's patience, heaven's peace, heaven's power. The story ends not with fireworks, but with fulfillment. You are no longer waiting for your destiny to begin, you are living it. Every step from here on is overflow. Every breath a testimony. You've learned the greatest truth of all, that the crown isn't given at the finish line, it's forged along the way. And so, as you move forward, know this, you wear heaven's approval already. You are the evidence of endurance, the living echo of grace. The promise has not just returned, it has matured. And so have you. What God joined, He has now perfected. What He promised, He has now fulfilled. You've reached the point where love no longer needs to chase, only to rest. Where faith no longer trembles, only trusts. Where hope no longer waits, only worships. This is the completion of what began when you first whispered yes to heaven. The journey wasn't about finding the promise, it was about becoming it. And now, as heaven watches, the story continues not as struggle, but as testimony. The chosen one has endured, has believed, has overcome, and through your faith, others will learn that when God chooses, He also completes. The story doesn't really end here, it transforms. What began as waiting has become wisdom. What once felt like loss has turned into light. You've walked through fire and found gold, through silence and found strength. This message, this journey, this awakening, it now lives inside you. And if it has stirred something in your spirit, let that light move forward. When you press like, it isn't just a gesture, it's a heartbeat that tells heaven, this reached me. When you share, it's like handing a candle to someone still walking in darkness, giving them direction through your flame. Leave a comment below. Not just words, but a reflection. Think of it as laying a stone on sacred ground, a sign to others that you've walked this path and made it through. Your story, written in just a few lines, could become the lantern that helps another soul see. And if you feel led to stay connected, subscribing isn't about following, it's about fellowship. It's saying, I want to keep walking in the flow of this light. You become part of something greater, a circle of hearts, keeping hope alive in a weary world. For those whose hearts feel moved, giving or donating is never obligation, it's continuation. It's like pouring a drop of oil into a lamp so its flame never fades. Every act of generosity keeps this voice of hope alive, carrying the message farther than one person ever could alone. However you choose to respond, through prayer, through presence, through generosity, know this heaven sees. Heaven multiplies. Heaven remembers. The story of chosen ones lives on through you. Together, we keep the flame burning. One act of faith, one spark of love, one shared light at a time.